The first time my foster daughter called me Dad, she immediately apologized for it. She stood in my kitchen, wearing my late wife's oversized cardigan, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate with trembling hands. "Thank you, Dad." The moment she said it, her eyes widened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know I'm not really your daughter." I smiled and gently hugged her. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "you became my daughter the day I brought you home." What I didn't know at that moment was something that still gives me chills whenever I think about it. I wasn't becoming her father for the first time. I was becoming her father for the second time. My name is Gregory Hale. I'm 63 years old and live in Charleston, South Carolina. I spent more than 35 years building a successful construction company alongside my beautiful wife, Amelia. We had everything we ever dreamed of: a beautiful home, a successful business, and after 13 years of waiting, a miracle. Amelia was 8 months pregnant with our baby girl. We had already painted the nursery pale yellow. We had already chosen her name, Emily. Every single night before sleeping, Amelia would rest my hand on her belly and whisper, "She's definitely going to be a daddy's girl." I always laughed and told her she was absolutely right. For 13 years we prayed for that little girl, and finally, God answered our prayers. Then one terrible phone call destroyed my entire world. It happened 16 years ago. I was attending a construction conference in Denver when my younger brother Raymond called me just after midnight. His voice was trembling. "Greg, there's been an emergency." My heart immediately sank. Amelia had suddenly collapsed at home and was rushed to Charleston Memorial Hospital. Doctors suspected a ruptured brain aneurysm. The hospital performed an emergency C-section to save our unborn daughter. I booked the first available flight home. I prayed during the entire flight. I promised God I would spend every remaining day of my life being the husband and father they deserved, if He would simply let them live. When I finally arrived at the hospital nearly 7 hours later, Raymond was waiting for me outside the ICU. He immediately hugged me and began crying. "I am so sorry, brother." My knees nearly gave out. "Where are they?" He couldn't look me in the eyes. "Amelia didn't make it." I felt something inside me break. Then he whispered 6 words that destroyed what remained of my soul. We couldn't save the baby either. My daughter was gone before I ever got the chance to hold her. I never heard her cry. I never got to see her face. I never even got to tell her that her father loved her. Raymond handled everything over the following few days because I was completely shattered. The doctors explained that complications during surgery made things extremely difficult. And because of legal and medical protocols, viewing the bodies wasn't recommended. Looking back now, that sentence should have been the first thing that made me suspicious. But grief makes intelligent people believe things they normally wouldn't. And I trusted my younger brother more than anyone else in this world. That trust cost me 16 years with my daughter. For the next 14 years, I simply existed. I sold my company and retired early. I never remarried. Every year on what should have been Emily's birthday, I bought a small birthday cake and sat alone in my dining room wondering who she would have become. Would she have inherited Amelia's smile? Would she have loved music? Would she have been a daddy's girl like Amelia promised? Some wounds never truly heal. Then 2 years ago, something unexpected happened. I started volunteering at a local foster care center. That's where I met a quiet 16-year-old girl named Sophie Mercer. She loved hot chocolate. She had Amelia's beautiful brown eyes, and for some strange reason, every time she smiled, my heart felt strangely familiar. The social worker explained that Sophie had spent nearly her entire life moving between foster homes. No known surviving relatives, no permanent family. No one ever came looking for her. I immediately felt protective of her. After several months, I legally adopted her. For the first time in 16 years, my house finally felt like a home again. Unfortunately, one person hated that decision from the very beginning. My younger brother, Raymond. "Greg," he told me repeatedly, "you're too old to adopt a teenage girl. She doesn't belong here. Send her back before she becomes entitled to something." Eventually, he stopped pretending to care. That foster girl isn't family. Every single time he visited my home, he found a new reason to criticize her. One afternoon, Sophie quietly asked me, "Uncle Raymond looks afraid whenever he sees me. Why?" That question stayed with me. Because she was absolutely right. He wasn't angry. He was terrified. Now tell me honestly, if someone in your family constantly begged you to send your adopted child away, would you trust their intentions? Comment never if you would immediately become suspicious. Or comment family first if you would still give them the benefit of the doubt. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday evening. Sophie knocked softly on my study door, holding an old silver locket in her hands. "Dad," she whispered nervously, "there's something I've been hiding from you." I immediately knew something was wrong. She sat beside me and began crying. "Uncle Raymond told me I should never show you what's inside." My entire body went still. "When did he tell you that?" "The first day I moved into this house." "What exactly did he say?" She lowered her eyes. "He told me if I loved you, I would never let you see it. He said if you opened it, you would hate me forever." My heart immediately began racing. Slowly, she handed me the silver locket. My hands started shaking before I even opened it, because somehow I already knew my entire life was about to change forever. I opened the locket. Inside was a tiny photograph of Amelia lying in a hospital bed. She looked pale, exhausted, but she was smiling. In her arms was a newborn baby wrapped in a white blanket. My vision blurred immediately. I knew that face. I knew that smile. I knew the small gold bracelet around Amelia's wrist because I had given it to her on our 10th anniversary. Sophie leaned closer. "Dad?" I could not answer. On the other side of the locket was a folded strip of paper, no wider than my finger. I carefully pulled it free. The handwriting belonged to Amelia. I would have recognized it anywhere. "Her name is Emily Grace Hale. Gregory, she lived." My hands began shaking so badly that the locket slipped into my lap. For 16 years I had believed my daughter died before I ever got to hold her, but my wife's final words said otherwise. She lived. I looked at Sophie, really looked at her, the curve of her eyebrows, the small dimple near her left cheek, the way she twisted her fingers when she was frightened. Amelia did all three. "Sophie," I whispered, "where did you get this?" She wiped her eyes. "It was with me when I entered foster care. The first family kept it in a box with my records. They gave it back when I was older. Did anyone ever tell you who the woman was?" She shook her head. "They said she might have been my mother." My heart nearly stopped. Then she said something even worse. "Uncle Raymond knew her." I stared at her. "How do you know?" "The first time he saw the locket, he grabbed my wrist." Her voice trembled. "He asked where I got it. Then he said the woman inside was nobody important." "Nobody important?" "My wife, the woman I had loved for 27 years, the mother of my child, reduced to nobody important by the man I trusted to bury her." That night I called my attorney, Claire Donnelly. Then I called a private investigator named Marcus Dean, a former police detective who had handled corporate fraud cases for my construction company years earlier. I told them everything. The hospital, the emergency C-section, Raymond's story, the locket, Amelia's note. Claire asked one question. "Gregory, did you ever personally receive your daughter's death certificate?" I thought back. "No." "Who handled it?" "Raymond." Silence. Then Marcus said, "We start there." The next morning, Sophie agreed to a DNA test. She was frightened. Not because she feared the result, because she feared losing me. "What if I'm not Emily?" she asked quietly. I took both her hands. "You are my daughter no matter what that test says." She searched my face. "You promise?" "I adopted you before I knew any of this. The truth can add to our family. It cannot take you out of it." 3 days later, the results arrived. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I read the page twice, then a third time. Sophie stood across from me in the kitchen. I could not speak. Finally, I held out the paper. She read it slowly. Her lips parted. Then she looked at me. "Dad?" This time she did not apologize for the word. I crossed the room and held her as tightly as I could. My daughter, not only by law, not only by love, by blood. The child I had mourned for 16 years had been living inside strangers' homes, while I sat alone every year beside a birthday cake she never knew existed. Now tell me honestly, which would be harder to forgive? A brother lying once during a moment of panic? Or a brother watching you grieve for 16 years while knowing your child was alive. Comment the first lie if the hospital deception is unforgivable. Comment the 16 years if staying silent afterward was the greater cruelty. Marcus found the first break in the case 2 weeks later. Charleston Memorial still had archived records from the night Amelia died. The emergency C-section had been successful. The baby was born alive, healthy. The original file listed her as Emily Grace Hale, but 4 hours later, an amended intake form changed the infant's surname to Mercer, Amelia's maiden name. The authorization had supposedly come from me. The signature was not mine. Raymond had forged it. The record also showed that someone claiming to be the infant's maternal uncle signed temporary placement papers, stating that the father was unreachable and unable to care for the child. Raymond was not Amelia's brother. He was mine. But in the confusion after Amelia's death, nobody checked carefully enough. Then Claire uncovered the motive. Years earlier, my father had created a family trust. If I died without a spouse or child, a large portion of the business assets would pass to Raymond. But if I had a surviving child, Raymond received nothing beyond a small fixed amount. Raymond knew Emily's existence stood between him and millions. He could not remove me. So he removed her. The final truth came from a retired nurse named Judith Lane. She had been working the maternity floor that night. At first, she remembered only pieces. Then Marcus showed her Raymond's photograph. Her face changed. He was there, she said. He kept asking whether the mother had said anything before surgery. Amelia had briefly regained consciousness after the delivery. Long enough to hold Emily. Long enough to write the note hidden inside the locket. Long enough to tell the nurse, "Do not let Gregory's brother take my baby." Judith tried to report the concern. But before anyone acted, Raymond had already left with the placement documents in motion. He did not kill Amelia with his own hands, but the investigation revealed he had delayed calling me, misrepresented himself to hospital staff, interfered with her emergency contacts, and ignored her warning so he could take control of what happened to Emily. Amelia died from the aneurysm, but Raymond used her death as an opportunity. That was monstrous enough. I confronted him in Claire's office. Not at home, not alone. Sophie sat beside me. Marcus stood near the door. Raymond entered confidently. Then he saw the locket on the table. Every bit of confidence disappeared. I pushed the DNA report toward him. "You knew." He did not touch it. "Greg? You knew she was alive." He looked at Sophie, then away. "I was trying to protect the family." "From my daughter? You don't understand what Dad left you." There it was. Not grief. Not confusion. Money. He continued quickly. "You had the company, the house, Amelia, everything. I had nothing. So you stole my child." "I placed her somewhere safe." Sophie stood. "Safe?" Her voice shook with anger. "I lived in 9 homes." Raymond flinched. She continued. "I slept with my shoes on because I never knew when I would be moved again." He looked at me. "I thought someone would adopt her." "Someone did," I said. "Me." The room went silent. Raymond lowered his head. For a moment he looked old, small, but I felt no pity, because regret after exposure is not the same as conscience. Claire had already referred the forged documents and trust-related fraud to prosecutors. Raymond was later charged with identity fraud, falsifying records, and conspiracy connected to the improper placement. The trust removed him permanently. Every dollar he had waited 16 years to inherit was gone. But the money did not matter to me. The years did. The birthdays, the first steps, the first day of school, the nightmares I should have comforted, the questions Sophie had asked strangers because her real father had been told she was dead. Those were the things Raymond stole. And no court could return them. Sophie legally changed her name 6 months later. Emily Sophie Hale. She kept Sophie because it belonged to the girl who survived. She reclaimed Emily because it belonged to the daughter Amelia named. On the day the papers became official, she asked me one question. "If you had known from the beginning, would you have loved me differently?" I shook my head. "No," she smiled. "Why not?" "Because I chose you before I recognized you." Her eyes filled. Then she hugged me. The silver locket now hangs beside Amelia's wedding photograph in our living room. Sometimes Emily opens it. Sometimes I do. I still grieve what we lost, but grief is different now. It no longer feels empty. It has a voice in the kitchen. Footsteps on the stairs. Hot chocolate on cold evenings. My brother spent 16 years trying to erase my daughter from my life. But family is not so easily erased. Sometimes love finds its way back without a map. Sometimes a father adopts the child he was told he had buried, and sometimes the truth waits inside a silver locket until the right hands are finally brave enough to open it.